Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to our Seerah class. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. So last week we talked about the two migration that took place to Abyssinia. We talked about we talked about the so-called satanic verses, the story of the verses that were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ of Surah Al-Najm, in which, due to the eloquence and the power of the powerful message of that surah, we had even the Quraysh and the mushrikeen of Quraysh perform sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's what it says at the end of the surah. Fasjudu lillahi wa'budu. So make sajda to Allah and worship Him. So everyone, including the mushrikeen of Quraysh, including the jinns, the humans and the jinns, they all fell down in prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we talked about how the rumor spread around and went all the way to Abyssinia, and the Muslims, they thought that the Quraysh had all become Muslims, so they said, all right, let's pack our bags and let's go back to Mecca. They went to Mecca and they found that the rumor was false. So after a few days, they migrated back to Abyssinia again, this time a much larger contingency, a group of Sahaba, almost about 100. So what was left? What was left inside Mecca? What was left inside Mecca? We said that there was only about 150, 200 maximum, about 150 to 200 Muslims in a society, okay, in a city that had roughly about 1,000 people, 1,000 inhabitants. So you could say anywhere from 15 to 20% of the population of Mecca had already become Muslim. And we are talking about 7 years after the prophethood, 7 years after the prophethood. 10% of the population migrated, 10%. So that infuriated the Quraysh. That infuriated them to such an extent that they had to send a delegation to go ahead and bribe some of the government officials in Abyssinia, which is current nowadays Ethiopia, to bribe them and also bribe the king to hand these people back as a defeat to both them and Islam in general. And we already talked about what transpired between Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, who was the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, and also the king in Amr ibn al-As, who was a diplomat. And also when he became a Muslim, he became one of the greatest, I guess you could say, with for lack of better words, one of the greatest politicians, emissaries, ambassador, whatever you want to call it, of the Muslims at the time of the Sahaba. Umar radiallahu anhu gave him very important tasks. He was responsible for conquering Egypt. He was responsible for bringing the pandemic in Syria to a halt, which killed hundreds of Sahaba. But he was the one that he put everyone, literally everyone, in lockdown. I told you in the beginning of our class, the first class that we had online, how he was responsible for saying that basically that this pandemic is like a fire, and the people are the fuel for this fire. So everyone stay in your homes. And I think he quarantined them. He put them in lockdown for about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. 20 days, I think. 20, yes, about 20 days, I think. And alhamdulillah, it went away. Of course, nowadays we can't use a 20-day measure because of the increase in population and the complexities that we have. We don't have in one small space thousands of people stacked up on top of each other. And what I mean by that is that we have these condominiums, right? And these condominiums take up a very small space on the ground, but it goes all the way up, in which case that if you were to spread it horizontally rather than vertically, if you were to spread it horizontally, then it will take much larger space. So if you look at, for example, Hong Kong or KL, you will find that if you were to spread this, that you probably won't find a place to drive your car here in Malaysia. You won't find much. You won't even find the hills or the mountains or anything here, because everything will be leveled in order for people to build their houses. In any case, the point is that the population complexities and everything is much more complicated. So we cannot. So that's why you see that people are actually quarantining and having lockdowns for much longer days. But you could say that because of his smartness and him being such a politician and diplomat, that he really, even though before Islam he was one of its greatest enemies, but yet after Islam he was one of the biggest helpers, propagators, promoters, and defenders of Islam. So let's move on to another issue, and that is let's move back to Mecca. Because we don't really have too much information on the Muslims in Abyssinia except for this major event. We really don't know too many things that happened. We don't really know too many things that happened in Abyssinia to the Muslims. So people didn't record. I mean, the little that was recorded was said mainly by the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, which was both Salama and also Habiba. Habiba, she was also the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. So she would narrate some of the major things that happened. But we don't have a lot of information, especially given that they lived there for about 10, 11 years. So, and that's just how, some of the history in some periods during the prophethood, it did, especially before the hijrah. Now, when the hijrah happened, we will have very, very detailed and much more information with regards to every single thing, because the Sahaba were much more free to record such things. They were much more, how can I say, they had the luxury to do so. Whereas in Mecca, they were afraid for their own lives. They were just trying to learn Islam. They didn't really have time. They would not even record the hadith. Actually, they were forbidden from recording the hadith because the wahi the revelation of the Quran was just in its early stages. So the Prophet ﷺ prohibited them from recording any of his sayings for fear that it might be mixed up and people would not know the difference between the Quran and the Hadith. But once the Quran was more solidified in their hearts, and they were able to, once it was solidified in their hearts, and they were able to distinguish between the eloquence of the Quran as well as his sayings, then they were able to then they were allowed to go ahead and record. And this happened in Medina. So in Medina, we will have much more, many more details. That's where more hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is known to have been said, because now you have very prominent Sahaba who would either memorize them or write them down, and so on. So in Mecca, we don't have too much information. So what about in Abyssinia? Even more so. So we're just going to leave it Abyssinia. Let's go back to Mecca, and let's talk about two major conversions that happened in Mecca, that took place in Mecca. And now in Mecca, we mentioned how about 100 people, about 90 people to 100 people had migrated to Abyssinia. So the bulk of Muslims had migrated to Abyssinia. Now we have only about 40, maybe 50 people, Muslims left in Mecca. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blessed the Muslims in Mecca, because now you have a much smaller population. So that means there's going to be kind of less protection for them. So those 40 people, 40 Muslims, 40 Sahaba that were left or that stayed behind in Mecca, they are more exposed to torture. They are now more vulnerable to the attacks by the Quraysh. All right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blessed the Muslims in Mecca with two major conversions. And that was the conversions of Hamza ibn Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib and Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhuma. Right? Now, the first one to become Muslim was Hamza radiyallahu anhu, and he was the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Hamza radiyallahu anhu, he was a very well-known, a famous archer. He was also known for hunting lions. Yeah, you heard that right. He used to hunt lions. Now, you tell me, when was the last time you even went hunting for a chicken? We can't even slaughter a chicken. We can't even catch a chicken. Now imagine this person, he goes and he hunts lions, right? So he was someone who was known as a very good archer and a very good hunter. And he was one of the strongest men in Mecca. He was one of the strongest men. So he used to go on very long hunting trips, and when he would return, he would go to the Kaaba, do his tawaf, and then he would go home. So one day, Abu Jahl, may Allah's curse be upon him, he was in a very bad mood. Okay, so he began to curse the Prophet ﷺ and his ancestors like he's never done before. So the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say anything. He never returned. He never cursed at anyone back. He never said even a single word back to Abu Jahl. To the point where Abu Jahl, he got tired and he just went away. And that's what happens when you have someone who is cursing at you and you remain silent, and the person, he's not getting any sort of retaliation from you. He's just gonna get bored and he's just gonna leave. What makes it more interesting is when you retaliate, and that gives him more ammo to attack you back. So if you really want to end a conversation or a fight, one of the parties just has to remain silent. So he got bored, he got tired, and he just walked away. Now, one of the women of Banu Hashim is the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ, and Abu Jahl, he was from Bani Makhzum. So one of the women of Banu Hashim, she was seeing all of this. She was hearing this. So she was getting extremely insulted and offended by what Abu Jahl was saying to the Prophet ﷺ. Even though she was not a Muslim or a Muslimah. But yet, how could one tribe, how could one person from one tribe curse a person from my tribe? So even though she was not a Muslimah, she got insulted that Abu Jahl is cursing the Prophet and her own forefathers. Basically, who does he think he is to curse our men? Okay. So this was a matter of tribal honor for her. So when Hamza radiallahu anhu returned from one of his expeditions, she went along with some of the women, and they started taunting Hamza radiallahu anhu, because remember, Hamza, he's a young man. Okay, he's in his he's almost around the age of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 45, 50. Okay, and he's someone who is very very strong. Everyone looks up to him for the physical defense and honor of their particular tribe against the other tribes of Quraysh. Remember, there's several tribes that make up Quraysh. Okay? Quraysh is not one tribe; it's made up of several tribes. Banu Hashim, Banu Makhzum. These are all the various tribes that make up. And then within these tribes, you have sub-tribes. So from Banu Hashim, you have Banu Abdul Muttalib. So now you will have just more specifically the sons of Abdul Muttalib, and so on. Okay, even though the Quraysh, they all descended from a common ancestor. Okay, but then of course they all branched out, and so they're all distant cousins. They're all cousins. They're all related. In any case, so some of the women, they went to Hamza radiallahu anhu, they started taunting him. What type of an uncle are you? Right? What kind of a protector of our tribe? What kind of leader are you? When your own nephew is insulted and there's no one to defend him. Meaning, where is your honor for the Banu Hashim? So Hamza radiallahu anhu, he asked, he said, what happened? So they said that Abu Jahl stood there for however long that he wished, and he started insulting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They said that he started insulting Muhammad. Okay, started insulting Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there was not a single person from our tribe that was able to stand up for him and defend him. And also the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't even say a single word back to him. So they narrated everything to Abu Jahl. They narrate everything to Hamza radiallahu anhu about all that Abu Jahl said. So now, as Hamza radiallahu anhu, he's hearing all of this, his blood is boiling. It's a matter of pride and honor. Remember, Hamza, he's not a Muslim, but still, that is his nephew. That is a person from his tribe. So it was a matter of public insult. It was a matter of pride and honor for him. So he asked, he said, did this happen in public? Did other people see this humiliation? And they told him the whole Makkah saw it. So Hamza radiallahu anhu, he lost it. Remember, Hamza radiallahu anhu, he's just entering Makkah. Okay? He's just entering Makkah, and he has all of his stuff. He's tired. He just wants to go and make tawaf. But then all of these women, when they hear that Hamza is approaching Makkah, they all go out, and they are now, as he's slowly riding in, they all go and they're telling him this. So what do you think that's doing to Hamza radiallahu anhu? Right? Making his blood boil, He's getting infuriated. He's getting so upset that he just goes and marches straight to where Abu Jahl normally sits around the Kaaba. So Hamza radiallahu anhu, he marches straight to the Kaaba. He still has his armor. He still has his bow and arrow. He still has his sword. And he goes straight to Abu Jahl. And the first thing he does is that he smacks him across his face with his bow. And it was such a terrible blow across his face that it caused a huge gush of blood to flow from it. And he says, "How dare you curse my nephew?" He said, "How dare you curse my nephew? And I am a follower of his religion as well." And Hamza radiallahu anhu, because of so much anger, he didn't even realize that what he had just said. Because of just so much anger towards Abu Jahl, he says he didn't even realize what he was saying, or what he was probably even doing, because that's the only thing. He didn't say hi. He didn't even try to say, "Why did you do this?" or anything. The first thing he did is smack him with his bow so hard that blood started to gush forth from his face. And he says, "How dare you do this to my nephew? And I am a follower of his religion." So basically what he's saying to him is, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do? I am a defender. I am a follower of his religion. What are you going to do? So now when this happened, of course, Abu Jahl, he's not any ordinary individual. So all of his tribesmen, all of the young people, like Khalid bin Walid, right? He's much younger than Hamza radiallahu anhu, in his early 20s. Now he gets up and he wants to go ahead and defend his tribe, which is Abu Jahl. Khalid bin Walid, he's not a Muslim at this point. Right? But Hamza radiallahu anhu, he is much more stronger than Khalid ibn Walid or anyone else besides Umar. So Umar and Hamza, you could say, they are like the two lions of Makkah. So they all get up trying to take revenge for Abu Jahl against Hamza radiallahu anhu, and they are about to attack Hamza, and Abu Jahl says, "No, leave him." He said, "I cursed his nephew like I have never done before." Basically, I know why he's upset, and he's justified in being upset. So now Hamza radiallahu anhu, he returns home and he's confused. What did I just say? What did I just say? That I am a follower of his religion as well? And he's not, he was not. What am I going to do now? I don't know if this religion is the truth or not. And so Hamza radiallahu anhu, he's just confused, like, I didn't mean to say it. But then he makes dua to Allah. He says, "Oh Allah, you know I am the leader of Quraysh, and I have said something that I cannot take back," because now he cannot say it was a slip of the tongue. He cannot say it was a mistake, because he will lose his status. And that is if you wanted to be considered a man, if you wanted to be respected, whatever you said, whether it was at the heat of the moment, it was out of whatever it was, you had to honor your word, right? And that's why we have sayings such as, "Be a man of your words." That's what we have. phrases and statements like that. Be a man of your word. Meaning, don't go back on your word. If you say something, you defend it, and if you can't, then take the blame or take that embarrassment of having to go back on your word. Now, if you are a leader, you're not going to do that. So Hamza radiallahu anhu, he makes dua. He said, "Oh Allah, you know what I said. And I said something that I cannot take back. Oh Allah, if this matter, if this religion is true," remember, they did believe in Allah. They all believed in Allah, but yet they believed in that there are other helpers and there are other gods also worthy of being worshipped and asked and made dua to. But these are the other gods such as Allat, wal-Uzza, wal-Manat. These gods, they were helpers. They were intermediaries with Allah. So they did believe in Allah. They did believe that Allah is the one that created them. They had no doubt that it was Allah who created them. Their problem was that Allah was not the only one worthy of worship. And that is what La ilaha illallah means. If you were to translate La ilaha illallah, it does not mean there is no God but Allah. What it means is there is no one worthy of worship except Allah. There is no one to worship except Allah. It does not mean there is no God but God. There is no God but Allah. Because if we were to take that translation, then actually it defeats the message that the Prophet ﷺ came with, because they had already believed in Allah. So over here, the Prophet ﷺ, through La ilaha illallah, was telling them that there is no one worthy of worship, there is no God worthy of worship except that one God. So Hamza radiallahu anh, he's making this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, if this matter, if this religion is true, guide my heart to it. And if it is not true, cause me to die right now. He rather die than go back on his word. That's what men are, or at least that's how they were. And so he spent most of his the night just tossing and turning and thinking about what he had just said. So the next morning he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he told him the whole story. So the Prophet ﷺ stood up and he began to talk to him, convincing him, until finally Hamza radiallahu anhu said, "I testify you are speaking the truth, and now I don't want to go back to the religion of my forefathers." So he accepted Islam. So this is how Hamza radiallahu anhu became a Muslim. Initially, he wasn't sincere in the sense that he did not know what he had just said. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he guided his heart, and we know that in the battle of Uhud, he is one of the 70 plus Sahaba that had been martyred, and he was called the master or the leader of the shuhada, of the martyrs, and that was a title that was given to him by the Prophet ﷺ. And also he was called the Lion of Allah and the Lion of the Prophet because of his bravery. And when Hamza radiallahu anhu had accepted Islam, this was a huge boost, both in terms of defense as well as a morale boost for the Sahaba. It was a huge boost for the Prophet ﷺ, because he was one of the most senior Qurayshi to become a Muslim, to convert. Okay, he was the son of Abdul Muttalib. He was the brother of Abu Talib. He was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. So when he became a Muslim, the mushrikeen had to tone down their hatred towards the Prophet ﷺ, because now they know what Hamza is going to do to you. And he's not afraid of anyone. He's not going to back down. So they had to tone it down. Now, let's talk about the conversion. What's happening here? Let's talk about the conversion of Umar radiallahu anhu. Now, after about 3 days after the conversion of Hamza radiallahu anhu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he blessed the Muslims with another conversion. And that is the conversion of Umar radiallahu anhu. And this all occurred towards the end of the 6th year of prophethood. So the end of the 6th year, beginning of the 7th year. Okay. Now, there were people who used to say about Umar radiallahu anhu that that his donkey will become a Muslim, will accept Islam before he does. That's how that was known about Umar radiallahu anhu. That's what people used to say. That Umar, he is such a stubborn and such a enemy of Islam that there is no way he is going to become a Muslim. He was one of the worst enemies to the Muslims. Him and Abu Jahl. These were these two people were the most severest enemies to Islam and the Muslims. They were also very physically very powerful as well. Why? Because they belonged to that Banu Makhzum tribe, right? And they were responsible for the protection and the defense of Quraysh. Remember how I mentioned the Kif? Remember how we mentioned in the first day of our Seerah class that the Banu Makhzum tribe, which was the tribe of Khalid bin Walid, Abu Jahl, and it was a tribe to a distant tribe of Umar radiallahu anhu, even though he belonged to a different tribe directly, but nonetheless he did have roots with the Bani Makhzum. These people were all generals and commanders. They were army people. They were big and buff. You don't want to have midgets. You don't want to have, skinny people. You don't want to have, like weak people in your responsible to be generals or to be in the army. So the defense or the army branch, right, of politics was taken up by the Bani Makhzum, which belonged to Abu Jahl right? So Umar radiallahu anhu, he was and Abu Jahl, they were very, very powerful individual. Physically, they were also very buff people. And in terms of lineage, they were also very powerful. So the Prophet ﷺ, one day he made dua. He said, "Oh Allah, bring glory to Islam with one of these two men who is the most beloved to you, either Abu Jahl or Umar ibn al-Khattab." Either Abu Jahl or Umar ibn al-Khattab. And this was the dua that the Prophet ﷺ made. And the and some of the Sahaba, they knew this. Some of them, they knew of this Dua of the Prophet ﷺ. So basically what the Prophet ﷺ, he's saying, oh Allah, give one of these two people, whoever that you like, oh Allah, give them to me. Whoever is the most beloved to you. And it is without a doubt that Umar radiallahu anhu, he was more beloved to Allah by far than Abu Jahl. And this shows that guidance is truly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These two people were beyond hope. Okay? There was no way Abu Jahl. You know how, like right now, looking back in history, if anyone was to say Abu Jahl became a Muslim, we can like deny that with such confidence because we have history and the fact of history on our side. We were like, no, there's no way he was such an enemy of Islam. There's no way he could have become a Muslim, and there is no way that he died a mushrik, he died a kafir. Just like how we are so confident and we know Abu Jahl, he died, that's how people were at that time too. They, with regards to Umar, they say, Umar, there's no way he's going to become a Muslim. The donkeys of his father are going to become Muslim before him. That's what they used to say, because of what he used to do to the Muslims. Because of what he used to do to the Muslims. So this shows us that indeed guidance is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody could have imagined that he could have come into Islam, but Allah, he's the one who's in control of the hearts of the people. And Allah caused the heart of Umar to come to Islam. Right? Now we know what we know what kind of glory Umar radiallahu anhu brought to Islam. We know what kind of glory that, because during the Khilafah of Umar radiallahu anhu, the pinnacle of Islam was reached, and Umar was indeed a legend. I mean, even right now, when we talk about Umar, we talk about him with such great honor, and we talk about, we talk about him with such great honor, and like this was our legend, one of our heroes in Islam. He was one of the heroes for the Muslims. We are proud to name our kids after him, right? Hoping that if I was to name him Umar, then my kid would turn out to be like Umar radiallahu anhu, right? That's the hope. So what's the story with regards to the conversion of Umar radiallahu anhu? I will start this. If you guys can just give me one minute, I will be back. So how did Umar radiallahu anhu convert into Islam? There are several narrations with regards to what had happened. So it's narrated that once Umar radiallahu anhu, he went out during the evening and he wanted to go out for a drink. So he went to the house where all the young men used to gather and would drink, and he found none of them were there. So he went to another house and he also found that no one was there either. He went to the wine cellar. He went to the person who used to sell wine, but even the wine cellar wasn't there. So he said, let me go and make tawaf. So he went to the Kaaba to make tawaf, and he heard the Prophet ﷺ reciting Quran all alone in the middle of the night. No guards, no one around him. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he's narrating this story himself. So he says that, you know what, let me go ahead, and this is the time for me to beat this person. So he went slowly, he's creeping up behind the Prophet ﷺ in order to go ahead and beat him up, and he found him reciting the Quran. Now, just like the rest of the Quraysh, if you guys remember, just like the rest of the Quraysh, Umar, he never listened to the Quran wholeheartedly. He never really pondered over the Quran. Yes, they would hear it. They would hear that there are words coming out from the Prophet, but because of their hatred for him and the message and Islam and everything, they never like actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and see what you really have to say with an open heart. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he never really listened to the Quran, and he found that it has an amazing rhythm. And by the way, Umar radiallahu anhu, he was not someone who was not educated. He was a very educated individual, right? So he realizes the power of the recitation of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let me just go ahead and pull up what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he is reciting. So the Prophet ﷺ, he is reciting a surah which is called Surah al-Haqqa, chapter 69, the reality. Okay. So when Umar radiallahu anhu, he is listening to this, he finds the beautiful rhythm of the Quran, and I'm just going to come to the specific verse. Yeah. So when he's finding this beautiful rhythm and the amazing eloquence of and the power of Surah Al-Haqqa, right? He's amazed by this. So while the Prophet ﷺ, he's reciting, Umar, he starts to think, where is this coming from? Right? This must be the statement of a beautiful poet, just like the Quraysh are saying. As soon as he's thinking this, Surah Al-Haqqa is saying what? And it is not the word of a poet. وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تُؤْمِنُونَ. And it is not the word of a poet. Little do you believe. So as this thought is going to him, he's saying maybe what he's reciting is one of the poetry of some of these famous poets, just like how Quraysh are accusing him of. And then he hears the Prophet ﷺ, he's saying, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ. It is not the word of a poet. Little do you believe. Then Umar radiallahu anhu thought, it must be the words of a magician or soothsayer. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he recites, وَلَا بِقَوْلِ كَاهِنٍ. Nor the word of a soothsayer. Little do you remember. Umar radiallahu anhu thinks, then what is this surah? As I am thinking these things, immediately it's being answered by the recitation of the Prophet, of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then what is this? So Surah Al-Haqqa, it says, Tanzilun min Rabbil Alameen. It is a revelation from the Lord of the worlds. It is a revelation from the Lord of the worlds. So Umar, he thinks, and what if he's inventing it? What if he's inventing it? And Surah Al-Haqqa, it says right after it, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْدَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ. And if Muhammad had made up about us some false things, لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ. We would have seized him by the right hand. ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ. Then we would have cut from him the aorta, meaning basically kill him off. This is the major vein, the major artery that goes to in or out of the heart. Okay? And there is no one of you who could prevent us from him. So Umar, he's listening until the Prophet ﷺ, he finishes the entire surah. And Umar radiallahu anh later said, that was the first time that Islam entered, the light of Islam entered my heart. Then the next day, the people were sitting. And Umar radiallahu anhu, he was also there. And Abu Jahl, he has nothing else better to do. So he's going off on a tirade against the Prophet ﷺ, and he's saying, this man has insulted us, our fathers, our gods. We've had enough of him. He has cursed our religion. He has said that anybody who worships the idols will be punished in hell, and therefore he's making fun of our forefathers by saying they're all in hell. We need to get rid of him. Who will finish him off? And if anyone does it, I will give him 100 camels. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. 100 camels. Just to put it in perspective, okay? 100 camels is just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective. It's almost about $1 million. I will give him $1 million. And I will give him 100 pouches of silver coins. I will give him silver coins, 100 of them, and 100 camels. And this was an immense amount of wealth. Now Umar, though he was educated and he was everything, yet he was very poor. He wasn't rich. He was not well off. He used to tend to the sheep of his tribe outside of Mecca. Sorry, not the sheep, the camels. He used to water them. He used to pick up shrubs from the desert for his aunt, for his, for some of his relatives. And they used to give him just some dates, right, for his wage. So he was not someone who was very rich. He was someone who was very poor. But still, this amount of money was a lot of wealth for him. So he says, you know what? I think I can go ahead and use this amount of money in order for me to become rich off of it. So he goes home. He takes his sword. He unsheaths it. Now, in Mecca, it was not something that was uncommon to see someone walking around with a bow and arrow or walking around with a sword. It was very common sight. What was not common is when you would take it out of its covering or its sheath. So when you took that out and then you're walking in Mecca or in the streets with your sword unsheathed, then that means you are about to do something. So he goes out of his house with an unsheathed sword, and he's walking towards the Prophet ﷺ. And as he's walking towards the Prophet ﷺ, there are a number of things that is happening to him that is actually delaying him or preventing him from going. So for example, he hears voices telling him in very eloquent Arabic, what are you doing? This is just a man who is saying there is no one worthy of worship except Allah. But he kept on ignoring it until he passes by a particular Sahabi who was a secret Muslim. He was a fresh Muslim. He was someone who just secretly converted to Islam. And he asked Umar, he said, what are you doing? Where are you going? Because he sees Umar with this kind of a sword. And you could see when someone is up to no good, you could see it in their eyes, especially if they want to commit murder, if they are leaving with the intent of committing murder, right? You could see that they're full of rage, that they are full of rage. So he passes by this particular Sahabi. His name is Nu'aym ibn Abdullah. He passes by him and he says, where are you going? What's happening? So Umar, he says that I am on my way to the house of Muhammad to kill him, because enough is enough. We have been cursed by him. Our ancestors have been ridiculed, which is not true, by the way. I mean, you see how the fact that the Prophet ﷺ says whoever dies as a mushrik, he will go to Jahannam. So they said, so are you saying that our forefathers in Jahannam? But he never says that to them. Because now even though it is true, these people are going to use that against him. So they go ahead and make that. They say, well, if he's saying A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C type of a logic, right? Even though that logic in this case is correct, right? That if you die as a mushrik, you'll go to Jahannam. So our forefathers were mushrik, therefore our forefathers are going to Jahannam. That is correct, right? But you see how they say he is ridiculing our forefathers, which the Prophet ﷺ, he did not. So their logic is, or their conclusion about what the Prophet ﷺ, or the accusation that they are levying against the Prophet ﷺ is exaggerated. And that tactic is being used even up until now. Even up until now. That just because we oppose gay marriage, for example, we are against human rights. No, we're just against gay marriage. We are backwards. No, we're not. You guys are actually going backwards. Right? So you see these kinds of attacks. No, Islam needs to be reinterpreted because it is not in conformity with the current times. It is setting us backwards. It's setting us 100 years, 200 years back. And you'll see these kinds of accusation and exaggeration against Islam. So he says, I'm about to go and kill Muhammad. So this Sahabi, his name is Nu'aym, he panics and he says, have you lost your mind? Do you really think that his tribe is going to let you do that? That even if you succeed in killing Muhammad, that they're going to allow you to walk on earth unharmed after you kill one of their own? If you really want to do something, go and fix your own house. And that was a shock. Umar was like, what do you mean go and fix my own house? He said, don't you know your own sister and brother-in-law have accepted Islam? Now, we could say one of two things about what had just been said. One is that either Nu'aym, he said this out of he said it accidentally, where he not only was he a secret Muslim, but also the sister and brother-in-law of Umar radiallahu anhu was they were also secretly Muslims, to the point that no one knew, not even Umar. So this was a mistake from on behalf of Nu'aym, that this just came out of his mouth, saying that, look, go set your own house in order. Your own sister has become Muslim. right? Either that was said in by mistake, right, and it just came out, or it was in order for him to divert his anger from the Prophet ﷺ, so that way he can go to his sister's house while he has enough time to go to the Prophet and warn him about this and rally some of the Sahaba around the Prophet ﷺ, so that way the Prophet could be protected. Okay? Because he knows that Umar is not going to kill his own sister. Whatever she is, even if she becomes a Muslimah, there's no way. Yeah, he's going to get extremely upset, probably hit her, but he's not going to kill her. And even if he does hit her, that's nothing near to what he's going to do to the Prophet, which is to kill him. So it was in a way for him to buy time for the Prophet, for himself, so that way he can run off to the Prophet and say, this is what Umar is doing. Maybe get Hamza, maybe get some of the Sahaba to go ahead and defend the Prophet. So it was not a like a blurt moment, something that just came out of his mouth, but rather it was something that was well thought of. And he said, let me just get him off the back of the Prophet so he can go to the Prophet and warn him. Okay? So now Umar radiallahu anhu, he's like running towards his sister's house. He's enraged. Okay? Why? Because that was a slap in his face. He said, that was a slap. He said, my family has converted to Islam, the same Islam that I am out there to basically destroy. So he goes to his sister's house in so much anger, and he's banging on the door. And as he's about to bang on the door, he hears recitation of the Quran, the same things that he was hearing the night before from the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. So you have the recitation of the Quran being done, and of course we know that there was a teacher that was inside the house of Fatima, which was the sister of Umar radiallahu anhu, and she was teaching both Fatima and her husband Sa'id ibn Zayd. And the teacher, anyone know what was his name? We mentioned him already in our Seerah. His name was yeah, very good. Khabbab. His name was Khabbab. Khabbab was the one that, remember we said, he was tortured so much that once Umar radiallahu anhu, in his time when he was a Khalifa, right? You see how they already had that connection. When he was Khalifa, he asked to see the back of Khabbab, and it was just so much scarred up. Umar said, I have never seen a back like that. Never. So you could imagine, with all the scars due to whipping, and basically they used to make him lie down on his back after he had been whipped, right? And his flesh was torn apart, right? In the hot sand of Makkah, they would make him lie down like that. And they used to torture him with fire, with hot iron rods, and so on. So this was Khabbab. Khabbab was the one who is teaching them the Quran, because he is more well versed than them. And this shows us that even in the times of persecution, the Prophet ﷺ, he paid attention to the education of Islam. Look at how much they went through, just so that way they can learn the Quran. We have been reciting the Quran the same way since we were kids, not knowing if it is correct, if it is wrong, if it is with tajweed, and yet we have these kinds of Sahaba who gave up so much in order for them to go ahead. They put their life on the line. We don't have our lives on the line to learn the Quran. So the Prophet ﷺ, he put such importance to the education of Islam, even in times when in times of persecution. So the Prophet, so Umar radiallahu anhu, he is banging on the door and he is hearing the Quran being taught and learned from behind the door. When he is banging on the door and he's yelling, "Open up the door," Khabbab, he hears this. He knows that this is Umar radiallahu anhu, and of course everyone is scared of Umar. He goes and he hides in the closet. And Fatima, she takes this parchment, because they didn't have the actual mushaf or so anything that would be revealed would be written on a stone, on a tablet, on leather, on dried leather skin, even on leaves. Okay? So she takes this and she hides this parchment or stone that the Quran was written on. Okay? So she goes and she opens the door for Umar and she's welcoming him, come in, and have a seat. So Umar radiallahu anhu is asking, what is this noise? What was the noise I was hearing you guys say? Basically, she's denying all of this. And that makes him upset even more. He said, have you guys accepted Islam? Are you all enemies of yourselves? And he goes off on a tirade. And when he looks at his brother-in-law, Sa'id ibn Zayd, okay, he holds him by the beard, and as he's about to punch him or smack him or hit him, his sister jumps in the middle to defend her own husband, and instead Umar, he hits her sister so hard that there's blood coming out. When Umar radiallahu anh, he sees this, he calms down, and that is when they admit, yes, we did become Muslim. Are you going to kill us because we became Muslim? What are you going to do? After all, she is the sister of Umar radiallahu anh. She's also a very tough lady. Go ahead and do as you please. You can't do anything. And of course, Umar radiallahu anhu also had a very, very soft side to him as well. He had this very harsh side, but he also had a very soft side. And this carried on even after he became a Muslim, and when he became, and it was more evident when he became a Khalifa, that soft side. We only hear about Umar walking around with his sword, walking around with a stick, and just beating people up for no reason. No. He just could not tolerate stupidity. He couldn't tolerate people's ignorance. That's what Umar just had that in him. And that is one of the reasons why he is named Al-Faruq. Al-Faruq was a nickname that was given to him by the Prophet ﷺ. And what it means is someone that can distinguish between good and bad. Someone that can distinguish between truth and falsehood. And that was what Umar was. He used to see things very, very clearly. So he had this very harsh side that he's very known for. But when he became a Khalifa, right, he could not be harsh. He was what we call a servant of the people. He was their leader, serving them. So he had a very soft side. He used to cry very easily. He used to take himself into account, but he had no tolerance for corruption, for stupidity, for people just not doing things right. He used to set everyone straight. So Umar radiallahu anhu, when he sees that they are retaliating against him, and when he sees his sister, the blood is flowing down from her, he calms down and he takes a seat. Okay? And his heart is just now, much more softer now. It's not enraged. So his eyes falls upon the sheath or the parchment of the Quranic verses. So he tells his sister, what is that? Give it to me. So as he's about to take that, his sister grabs it from him. And she said, no, you cannot touch this because you are najis. You are a mushrik. You're still a pagan, and you are unclean. You cannot touch this. He insisted in reading it, but she will not allow him. So she said, you go and take a shower and then we'll allow you. He goes reluctantly. He goes, takes a shower, he comes back, and now he's reciting chapter 20. So he starts from the beginning, and it's one of my favorite surahs. It's one of the most beautiful surahs of the Quran. Taha, ma anzalna alayka al-Qur'ana litashqa. We have not sent down to you the Quran that you be distressed. إِلَّا تَذْكِرَةً لِمَنْ يَخْشَى, but only as a reminder for those who fear. You see how they're all rhyming, and the eloquence of it is very beautiful. تَنْزِيلًا مِمَّنْ خَلَقَ الْأَرْضَ وَالسَّمَاوَاتِ الْعُلَى, a revelation from He who created the earth and highest heavens. الرَّحْمَنُ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى, the most merciful who is above the throne established. So he's reciting this, all of it. Okay. Allahu la ilaha illahu, lahul asma'ul husna. Allah, there is no deity worthy of worship except Him. To Him belongs the best names, asma'ul husna. So he's reciting this, and until he comes to this particular verse. Innani ana Allahu la ilaha illa ana fa'budni wa aqimis salata li dhikri. Indeed, verily, it is I, it is me who is Allah, who has no one worthy of worship except I. So worship me and establish the prayer for my remembrance. This was when he came upon this verse, he was a changed man. Islam had entered his house, and he says, take me to Muhammad. Take me to Muhammad. Now Khabbab, he's hearing all of this. Khabbab radiallahu anhu, he's hearing all of this. He jumps out of the closet, he comes out, and he says, have the glad tidings, O Umar. Just last night, it was when? It was Thursday night. He said, just last night, the Prophet was making dua, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, O Allah, give glory to Islam with one of these two people, either Abu Jahl or Umar. And it seems like his dua was answered in your favor. So they take Umar radiallahu anhu to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Okay, and when the Prophet sallallahu when he goes, Umar radiallahu anhu, he still has his sword with him. He still has his sword. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he goes to the house of Al-Arqam with the sword still in his hand because he couldn't leave that behind. So he's knocking on the door, and some of the Sahaba, when they see that it is Umar, they tell the Prophet ﷺ, "O Prophet of Allah, Umar is outside with a sword." They don't know what has already transpired in the house of his sister. So Hamza radiallahu anh, he's already inside the house of Al-Arqam, and he just became a Muslim 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And he says, let him in. If he wants good, he will accept Islam. Okay? And if Allah wants other than that for him, then the very sword that he is holding, we're going to use that against him. Meaning, I am going to kill him with his own sword. And that is another giant of Islam. Right? So he said, let him in. So they let him in, and they escorted Umar radiallahu anhu to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he sat down in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the Prophet, he held him by the collar like this. Okay, he held the, I don't know if you guys can see me, but he held him like this, and he pulls him towards himself, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked him, he said, "O son of Khattab, what are you doing here?" Prophet ﷺ, he's not afraid of him. And the Prophet says to him, if you continue on this path, meaning if you continue to be a mushrik, Allah will destroy you. And this is when Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, I have come here to accept Islam. And upon hearing this, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Allahu Akbar. So loud that everyone in the house can hear it. And that's when they knew Umar had accepted Islam. Now, when Umar radiallahu anhu became a Muslim, now the 40, the 40 some odd number of Muslims that were living in Mecca, now they could openly pray in front of the Kaaba. In front of the Kaaba. So what would happen is you would have Umar on one side and Hamza radiallahu anhu on the other side of the line. Or there were two lines, right? There were two lines, and in one line it was Hamza radiallahu anhu, and in the second line was Umar radiallahu anhu, and no one dared to come close to them because they know these are two giants from amongst them, and anyone harms anyone that is in their company, they're going to feel their wrath. They're going to feel their wrath. So what does Umar radiallahu anhu do? He wants to go and personally inform Abu Jahl that he became a Muslim, right? Because now Abu Jahl, he's in his house. He's thinking, all right, Umar took up my offer that he's going to go ahead and kill the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm going to give him 100 camels. So Abu Jahl thinks that the job is just and is on its way of being completed. So he's in his house getting everything ready, so that way Umar can come to him, give me my 100 camels and my 100 gold, my 100 coins of silver. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he goes to Abu Jahl and he knocks on his door. Abu Jahl, he opens the door and he welcomes him. He says, welcome. Umar says, I have come to personally inform you that I am a Muslim now, and I am upon the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Abu Jahl, he gets so much enraged. He can't believe what he has just heard. He slams the door on his face and he says, may Allah curse you and what you have come with. Then Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, who is the biggest gossiper in Mecca? Who's the biggest rumor monger or tattletale in Mecca. So someone said it is Jamil, some guy. His name is not important. So he went to that individual and he said, listen, I have a secret. Do you want to know? But I want you to promise me you're not going to tell anyone. So he said, okay. He said, I have just accepted Islam and I am one of the followers of Muhammad, but please don't tell anyone. Why did Umar do this? Because he knows this person, he's the biggest gossiper in Mecca. And instead of Umar going to every single person to tell them that he's a Muslim, because Umar, he's no joke. He's not going to hide his Islam from people. He wants everyone to know that he became a Muslim. And if anyone has a problem, come to me. You see how 180 degrees. Now before he was one of the worst enemies of Islam, and now he is one of the worst enemies of the mushrikeen. That's how Umar radiallahu anhu was. Complete transformation. Because he didn't have the time and energy to go ahead and inform the 1,000 people, inhabitants of Makkah, he's like, let me go ahead and inform one person who will spread this. You know, we have these people nowadays, right? You tell someone, hey, your secret, and then that person, next thing you know, after a week or after a couple of days, all of KL knows. They're talking about it on Facebook. Like, what happened here? Why? Because that individual is known to spread secrets of other people, right? When they're sitting with you, they tell you other people's secrets. And that's when you should realize, never tell your secrets to that individual, because he's going to take your secret, or she's going to take your secrets to other people. So this person, he jumps up, he says, okay, I have to go. So he goes, and now he is just informing every person. He said, did you guys hear? Umar, he became a Muslim. He goes to, hey, Umar became a Muslim. So he's doing the job of Umar radiallahu anhu, and he informs the whole Makkah. So he started informing all the people in Makkah that Umar radiallahu, because he wants to be everyone else. He wants to be the one to kind of inform everyone that Umar radiallahu anhu, he became a Muslim. And we know, of course, the many other blessings of the conversion of Umar radiallahu anhu. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said in an authentic hadith that there were people before you. So he's telling this to Umar. He said, "Oh Umar, there were people before you who were communicated by the angels, but they were not prophets. So there were angels that used to come to them and they used to communicate with them, but they were not prophets, right? And if there is anybody in my ummah like this, then it is Umar. Then it is Umar." And also there's another hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, he says that if there was to be a prophet after me, it would have been Umar. But there is no prophet after me, and I am the seal of the prophets. Now, what happened with these two conversions, both Hamza and Umar radiallahu anhu? The Quraysh now really felt threatened. Two things had happened, right? First, the bulk of the Muslims fled to Abyssinia. So you could say, if we said that there's 1,000 inhabitants of Makkah, 150 of them became Muslims, so that's 15%. 100 of those, they left and migrated to Abyssinia. 40 is left. That's a huge percentage, right? to have 15–20% of the inhabitants become Muslim. And now with these two people, that added to the threat that was being that they felt, that the Quraysh felt. These two, they're not just regular individuals. They're not only prominent, but they're very powerful. Now, at least before, we used to hit Bilal and torture Khabbab and smack Abdullah ibn Mas'ud around and do this. Now we know if I ever lay a hand on any of the Muslims, watch what Hamza is going to do to my hand. Look at what Umar is going to do. All they have to do is just complain to Umar, so and so even looked at me wrong, right? And Umar might, gouge his eyes out. So what did they do? So the Qurayshi tribes, the other tribes, they got together and they agreed that they need to kill Muhammad. And they said, how can we do it? There's no way that his tribe is going to allow us. So they said, we are going to go ahead with a proposal to Abu Talib, his uncle. Allow us to kill him and we will give you the blood money. Or we will have someone else kill him, meaning he's not from Quraysh, he's outside of Mecca. They will kill him, but we would give you blood money. And that infuriated Abu Talib. He says, never ever will I give you up my nephew, and never will I allow you guys to do this. So then they said, okay, if you don't do this, we are going to banish you from Mecca. We're going to banish you. We're not going, meaning what? We are not going to do any business with you. We're not going to buy from you. We're not going to trade with you guys. We're not going to give you guys any food. We're not going to give you any water. We're not going to marry from you, and we're not going to marry in you, from you and to you. So basically, this is a boycott. This is a sanction. This was such a sanction that it was not only economical, but it was political, and it was a social. So it was a boycott of an economic, political, and social level. So what did they do? They wrote this treaty on a parchment, and they hung this inside the Kaaba as a, to add sacredness to this agreement. So these tribes, they all came together and they agreed that this is what we're going to do after he's refusing to hand over his nephew. So they wrote it down and they hung it inside the Kaaba, because the Kaaba was not something that people could walk in. It was locked. Only one person had the key to it. So when they wrote it, they all signed and they all put that agreement inside the Kaaba, and they locked the Kaaba. So what happened? What happened? The Prophet ﷺ and Abu Talib and some basically all of the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ, Muslim and non-Muslim. Muslim and non-Muslim. You might be wondering why the non-Muslims were banished from Mecca. Well, they had to suffer the same fate as the Muslims because they refused to agree to the assassination and the killing of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. So they were banished outside of Mecca. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Can you guys see this Google Images?
Yes.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. So now let's look at where they were banished. Why? Okay. So this is the Haram right here. And this is where they went to a valley that was called the Valley of Abu Talib, Sha'ab Abi Talib. It was owned by Banu Hashim. So this was a valley right outside of Mecca. You might be thinking, oh, this was so far away, but maybe like at least 10 kilometers or something like that. But no, you'll be surprised where actually there was. Just to put things into perspective, let me go ahead and tell you exactly where it's at. This is where it was, right here. You know, right now where the buses are, all the buses when they, right now the extreme expansion of the Haram that's taking place. There's a huge, huge expansion, right? So this is just outside of that major expansion that's taking place, right outside of it. So this is where Sha'ab, this is the place right here. I've been to this place. In fact, if you go this way, right, this is where sometimes I stay with some of my friends over there. There was another better picture just to kind of give you guys a better perspective. Right? It's called Sha'ab. I guess this is the best picture that I found. But basically it is, at that time you could imagine how big Mecca was. It wasn't that big. Okay? So this is Sha'ab Abi Talib, right outside of the Haram. So you could say this is a very old picture of back in the days. Okay? So you could imagine there's some scattered houses here and there, not too many, and then you will see that there's different. See, these are the different idols. These are all the different idols that are surrounding the Kaaba. All right, and you have, for example, this is like their parliament right here, where they all used to gather in front. All right, so they put the parchment inside the Kaaba. They locked it up. They left, and the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ was banished outside. So you could see that this is something, you know, what you could just, like from here all the way to here would take you maybe about 5 minutes of walking. 5 minutes of walking. But if you were to go to the Haram now, right, to go from here all the way here will take you 1 hour just to walk. 45 minutes just for you to go around. This is, so what we have right now is much, much larger than what was the city of Mecca. This is much larger than the city of Mecca at the time. So where was, with regards to this, where was Bani Sha'ab? Somewhere around here. Okay? So this is Safa and Marwa. This is Jabal Abi Qubais. Okay? And this is Sha'ab Abi Talib, right here. That's where all the buses are. So people, they get let off over here and then they walk all the way here. Yes, there's several places for the buses, but this is the one. All right? Does that make sense? Can you guys get a better perception of where they were kicked out? So the Prophet ﷺ, they were all boycotted, and the Prophet ﷺ, the people that wrote it, the Prophet ﷺ made dua against them. And that individual that wrote or authored that boycott treaty, his name was Baghib ibn Amir, and the Prophet ﷺ, he made dua against him, and his hands became paralyzed until he died. So how long did they suffer from this? About 2 to 3 years. And we don't have too much information about this particular event. And you might be wondering why we don't have it. Well, first of all, very few people lived to narrate these times. And second, people tend to forget bad memories. People don't want to hold on to bad memories. That's why in Medina, they were just full of good memories. Why? Because it was just victory. Yes, they suffered a lot, but nowhere near how much they suffered in Mecca. So Medina, even though they suffered a great deal over there, even though that's where all the battles took place, but every single battle they won. So it was just victories upon victory that Allah was granting them. So they were in a much more relaxed and comfortable state in Medina, whereas in Mecca, people, they were tortured, they were going through a lot of hardship. So people, and that's just human nature, we tend to forget and not hold on to bad memories. We don't want to think about them. So that's why we don't have too much information about what happened during these 2-3 years, and that's a long time. But we don't have that much information. All we have is how secretly some of the distant relatives of Banu Hashim, they used to smuggle in food and water to them, because remember, no one is allowed to trade with them. How are you going to eat? So what did they eat? They drank rainwater, as if there was that much rain. Okay, they used to eat the the shrubs and the grass and whatever it was that the goats and the camels used to eat. That's what they used to eat, to the point where they said some of them said that our droppings were indistinguishable. Bilal radiallahu anhu, he said, our droppings, meaning when we used to defecate, that was indistinguishable from the goats. You know how the goats' droppings are just, they're droppings when they circle. And that's how theirs was too, because of the same type of food that they were eating. So it was indistinguishable. What was their main source of food? Their main source of food was how some of their close relatives that stayed behind in Mecca, they used to secretly go ahead and smuggle food to them. They used to secretly smuggle food to them. So what happened that brought an end to this boycott? Well, a couple of things, or a few things. The first of it is that the Prophet ﷺ, he made dua against the Quraysh. He said, "Oh Allah, send upon them a drought and famine like the famine of Yusuf alayhi salam." So Allah, he accepted this dua, and the famine became so bad for the people inside Mecca that they were forced to eat dead animals and chew on their dead skin. And they realized that this was because of the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. So they sent some messengers to try to bring about some reconciliation. Now the second incident is what some of the more historical books they narrate. Now, what happened is some of the people of Quraysh that had a more softer heart than the others, like Abu Jahl, they wanted to go ahead that after 2 or 3 years, they wanted to go ahead and break that pact, break that treaty. So what did they do? They said, let's go ahead and confront Abu Jahl that we no longer support him in this boycott. So they all ganged up during their regular weekly or daily meeting, and they all ganged up against Abu Jahl, and they said that for how long are we going to starve our own kith and kin? For how long are we going to starve our own kind to death? This is an evil thing. Abu Jahl, he became furious and he shouted, he said, who do you think you are? We all agreed to this treaty. And then someone else, he said, no, you forced it upon us. We didn't agree. Okay? And Abu Jahl, he was like, no, I didn't force it upon you guys. Then another person said, no, we didn't want this much. You are the one that basically wrote this. We didn't even write it, because Abu Jahl was like, we all agreed, and look, it's even written. He said, we didn't write it, you wrote it. You had that person write it. So when Abu Jahl, he sees that he's losing support, right? You have this parliament, this meeting that's taking place, and everyone, all the so-called MPs, right, in modern day terminology, they're all ganging up against you, and you're losing support. There's no way they're going to honor it. So Abu Jahl, he was like, it seems like you guys all conspired regarding this. This was not something that is just naturally occurring from you guys. You guys all hatched this plan up from before, right? So his public support has shifted from him, from Abu Jahl, and the support was in favor of bringing back these people, their own, the tribe of Banu Hashim, back into Makkah. Now, the third reason is that which completely turned the side against the Quraysh in favor of the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims, is that one day the Prophet ﷺ, he went to Abu Talib. Now remember, Abu Talib, he's also with the Prophet during this boycott. They're in that valley, right? They're outside, they're suffering. He's not a Muslim, but he's suffering with the Prophet ﷺ and the rest of the Muslims, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he goes to Abu Talib and he says to him, "Oh my uncle, Allah has just revealed to me, just told me that the treaty they wrote had been eaten up by termites, except for the phrase, Bismikallahumma, in the name of Allah. Bismikallahumma." Now, as a side note, there are certain du'as that start with Bismikallahumma, and there are certain du'as that start with Allahumma Bismika. Basically, it's the same meaning, it's just reversed. One is Allahumma Bismika, and then the other one is Bismikallahumma. Now, before the boycott, the du'as, any du'as that were revealed, used to start with Bismikallahumma. After the boycott, any du'as that the Prophet ﷺ, any new du'as that he used to teach the Sahaba, started with Allahumma Bismika. And you might be wondering why. Well, the parchment or the treaty started with Bismikallahumma, right? Now that was something that was very painful for the boycott, was something very painful for the Muslims. And then the fact that it's being done in the name of Allah, that boycott. And in order for for the memories to be kind of forgotten and let go after the boycott was done, the Prophet ﷺ changed the du'as to Allahumma bismika. So that way they will not be reminded by that. Does that make sense? So you will find some of the du'as saying, like for example, the du'a of sleeping, Bismika Allahumma amutu wa ahya. Okay. So we know the context of it. We know when it was revealed. It was revealed, or it was taught well before the boycott. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah, He just revealed to me that the parchment in which the treaty was drafted and signed by the leaders of Quraysh, that has been eaten up by termites, right? And except for the part where it says Bismika Allahumma. Now remember, this was sealed up. It's inside of the Kaaba. There's no way anyone could know, not even the people who wrote it, because they don't have, it's not like they go inside every day or every month. You only go there if there's an absolute reason. Okay? So now the Prophet ﷺ, he's telling Abu Talib, I'm ready to stake everything. Go and tell this to the people of Quraysh, that this has happened. If I'm a liar, then we deserve this. But if I'm not, then that means I am the messenger of Allah, and Allah, He is helping me. So he is staking his whole cause, because Abu Talib, he asked him, did Allah tell you this? He says, yes. So Abu Talib, for the first time since the enactment of the treaty, he marches to the city of Mecca with a group of his tribesmen, and he goes to the Haram and he says, "O people, let's forget about everything and let's bring out this treaty and see if we can come to a deal." So they became happy, because now they are thinking that he is going to hand over the Prophet. So he says, let's forget about everything, bring out the treaty, and let's see if we can come to a deal. Maybe, these 2-3 years of solitude brought in some kind of, some sort of a compromise. So they all became happy. And that maybe that they will hand over the Prophet. So they took out the treaty from the Kaaba in its cloth. And Abu Talib said, my nephew, so it's still inside the cloth, right? Like in the pouch. So he said, my nephew has told me that his Lord has told him that the treaty is no longer in existence, and everything has been eaten except for the phrase, Bismika Allahumma. So my challenge to you is this: if that's the truth, he says, so my challenge to you is this: if that's the case, if that is true, then let us come and return to Mecca. And if it is not, I will hand him over to you. That's what they said to him. So you see how, this is a side note, you see how much Iman, I'm putting that in quotation, how much Iman Abu Talib has in the Prophet ﷺ, that he's willing to risk everything. He's ready to risk everything just because what the Prophet, his nephew, told him. So they said, of course, all right, let's do it. So as they're opening up the cloth, they find that there is no treaty left. So when there is no treaty, what happens? Khalas, everything that was written in the treaty has no more effect. It has no more binding effect on it. And subhanallah, instead of them recognizing this as a sign from Allah and a miracle or a prophecy from the Prophet ﷺ, they were furiated. And they said, this is one of the magics that he's always been doing on us. So they are always coming up with all kinds of excuses not to accept Islam and also not to honor the Prophet. So, but they couldn't do anything because now there is no more treaty. And also because they gave their promise. They said, okay, before they could even open up the piece of cloth or pouch. So these are the three reasons that one could say led to the nullification of the treaty. And so the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ, which was Banu Hashim, they returned back to Mecca. Okay? They turned back to Mecca. Now, what are some of the benefits that we can gain from this incident of the boycott? Is that look at the amazing ties of kinship that was in existence between the tribes. Many people in Banu Hashim and many people in the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ, they were not Muslims, but they underwent the same hardship of boycott for the sake of the Prophet ﷺ. For the sake of the Prophet. Now, when Islam came, Islam not only solidified that, but also extended that to between Muslims. You see how, for example, you have even non-Muslims suffering with the Muslims due to the love and the ties of kinship, the tribes. When Islam came, not only did Islam validate that, but also said we should also unite and be together in the times of hardship with any fellow Muslim. With any fellow Muslim. Now look at what's happening nowadays. You have raids happening on, for example, some of the refugees, and they are being rounded up, and God knows what's happening to them, all under the name of this and that. Is that the concept of Islam? Is that what Islam is teaching us? Is that why you call yourself a Muslim and then you're saying that they're like, how is your Umrah that when I see you performing Umrah or Hajj next time, right? With all your bodyguards and all of this and all of the, and you're doing this and praying Tahajjud and you're going for Taraweeh and you're reading Quran, whatever it is that you claim you do as a Muslim. How am I supposed to take that in? Is that just for show, for name? What does that mean? If you never ever do anything that's optional, except for helping the Muslim, that is enough for you. I'm meaning if you pray your salah, but you don't do any optional prayers. If you do your obligatory Hajj, you never perform another Umrah, even, right? Those optional stuff is not going to take you to Islam or to Jannah. What is going to take you to Jannah? Your service to humanity and to the Muslims. Right? Look at what we're doing with the non-Muslims. There are Muslim countries who are sending plane load of humanitarian aid to the US. Turkey has sent 2 plane loads of medical supplies to the US. And you have other countries who are from the Muslim world doing the same. Why? Because they want to show that so-called great nation, we are here to help you guys, because they are the epicenter. But when it comes to some poor people who are working in our farms and working for 50 ringgits a day. This is what we do, all because we want to stop the coronavirus. The 6,000 plus infections that we have, not a single one has been reported from these migrants, from these illegal migrants. There is no evidence that they have them. Yes, there's speculation that they have them, but they're too afraid to go to the hospitals to get tested because of fear of being deported. Right? But the evidence that we do have, if you want to talk about based on evidence rather than assumptions, because proof far outweighs assumption, what the proof is, there is no proof against these people. The proof is for your own people that they are the ones that have the virus. So shouldn't you be rounding them up and putting them in some cages or in some quarantine? So at a time when you have in the US people, the US is setting free criminals from jails. They're just saying, go leave. We are making it even worse. Criminals, illegal immigrants are being let go from detention centers. These are kuffar, no iman, no belief in Allah and His Prophet. When you have no iman, you don't have compassion. And we are the people of Islam, which means peace, which means love. What is all of that love that they spew out and say we are against, terrorism and extremism? All of that is just BS. All of that is just bullcrap. None of that matters. I have no respect for any of that. Where is that compassion? Where is that religion of mercy that you guys always talk about? Maybe you guys are following a different religion. Maybe they are following a religion that, I guess, in a time of crisis does not call for compassion or mercy, right? Maybe it's a religion that talks about survival of the fittest, right? That evolutionary Darwinian type of a mentality. So you have even the non-Muslims, based upon tribal reasons, they are suffering for 2 or 3 years. We're not even 2 or 3 months. We're not even 2 or 3 months. We're barely 2 months into it. So you have the non-Muslims suffering with the Muslims. And over here, we don't even have Muslims suffering with the Muslims. Actually, we're not suffering. We're not. Alhamdulillah, everyone. We all have food. It's not like the migrants, they eat too much food. What do they eat? And then, subhanAllah, people are messaging. And they're like, these are the people you used to help. I'm like, what do you mean I used to help? What do you mean these are the people? As if all the help that I was doing was wrong. It's just I told you guys this from the first day, before any of this happened. I told you guys from the first day of the Seerah class on Zoom, the true akhlaq of the people are coming out. The true, mannerism of people are coming out. And this is just the first month or two. We're not seeing an end anytime. We're not seeing an end anytime soon. This is going to carry on well into the summer, or at least June, July. Right? And there are talks in the US, it's going to carry well into 2022, 23. And it's not something, okay, all right, tomorrow we're going. No, the food supply chain is going to be disrupted. It's already being disrupted. We're already acting like this. There's people already saying in the US, if this continues, we are going to hang and kill our own neighbors, and we're going to eat them. There are very famous people saying this. They're going crazy, and it's only a matter of time before that trickles down here to Malaysia and our society. That's what we're doing to them. We're hanging them. We're hanging them out to dry. Right? Just we're using different words and tactics. That the true akhlaq of people are coming, by the way, and things are going to get worse. So you will see how you know how in World War I, when Germany attacked Russia, and when during the winter, when there was very low amount of food, people resorted to eating kids, and first they resorted to eating animals, and then they resorted dead animals, and then they resorted to eating dead soldiers, and then they resorted to eating of course now everyone is dead, they ate them. Then they resorted to killing children because that's the only ones that were left, and eating them. And then when that was done, then they resorted to eating themselves. Cannibalism. I'm not saying this is going to happen, inshallah, it's not. I'm just saying that you see those things were unimaginable. And what we thought, we had some sort of humanity in us, but yet that humanity is their true faces are coming out. It's just very sad. It's a reality. You could run away from it. You could blame me for bringing you to this reality and bursting your bubble. You could blame me that. I wouldn't mind. I'll take that blame, right? But I don't like to live in a bubble. Sometimes I do. Sometimes, I'll be honest. Sometimes I do like to live in a bubble. But in this case, I don't like to live in a bubble. I like to live in a bubble when something is going, like, you're suffering from something, you just want to seclude yourself from the people. People have oppressed you, or you just want to live in a bubble by reading a book about the Seerah, in which the Ansar and Muhajirin used to help out one another, and the Prophet ﷺ used to love them and give them glad tidings. That's the kind of bubble I like to live in. Just find solace and comfort in the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. All right, that was just my 2 cents. I thought maybe I should use the next, or at least the last 5 minutes of class ranting about the current